for more Sports Center.
Thanks.
Yep. Get Up.
See you next
coming up
time.
next here on ESPN TV.
Good morning. It's time to get up with a Kyrie conundrum. He opted back in with the Nets, but is their relationship all sunshine and rainbows in Brooklyn? Speaking of relationships, the one between Baker Mayfield and the Browns is definitely stormy. The Cleveland quarterback speaks out on where he stands, and we'll tell you where his new home may be. And what's in Wendy's coffee this morning? Brian Woodhorse shares one caffeinated NBA deal that will certainly wake you up. And welcome to Get Up. I'm Ryan Smith in for Greeny. Huge day here, just a day away from the free agent frenzy in the NBA, and that's why we got these guys with us. Brian Woodhorse, Tim Bontemps, ready to go. Adrian Wojnarowski joining us as well, as is Sam Acho and Kimberly A. Martin, all over all things football. We'll get to them in a second, but first we got to start in the NBA because the offseason there is barreling towards free agency. And today, a big decision is looming for James Harden as he needs to make a decision by 5 Eastern on whether he is opting in or out of his $47 million contract for next year. Now, one player who did opt in ahead of today's deadline, the Lakers guard Russell Westbrook. The 9-time All-Star signs up for another year with LeBron, and the Lakers at a price of $47.1 million. And of course, as a reminder, the first domino in the free agency cycle has fallen. Kyrie Irving, he has informed the Nets on Monday that he will also opt in and stay in Brooklyn through next season. So a lot going on. And again, Russ opting into that big deal. But let's bring in our guys and talk about this. And Woj, I'll start with you. Kyrie, he's a Net for now, but is the drama over?
No, I don't know if the drama's over. I think certainly, there's going to have to be something of a reset in Brooklyn as they move forward, not just with Kyrie Irving, but with Kevin Durant. Now, they're both under contract this season. Obviously, Kevin Durant's got 4 years left on his deal, and essentially Kyrie Irving's on an expiring contract. And I think teams are going to continue to touch base with Brooklyn to make sure that they plan to keep this group together, that they plan to continue to build a team in the offseason around them. And that's what the Nets plan to do. But I think there's going to have to be a point here, either through free agency or in the offseason, where Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant really start to re-engage with the organization, with their teammates, with their coaching staff, and really start to do some team building for an organization that still very much has the talent to compete for a championship. And obviously now as free agency starts, their priorities are on trying to keep Patty Mills, Nick Claxton, who they can re-sign. So plenty more options for this Nets team to try and get better. But I think certainly Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, they're going to have to lead this team, be leaders. And I think that's going to have to start here in the offseason.
Wow, I find it fascinating that you're talking about resetting and team building. And Wendy, you look at this situation, he opts in, you think, okay, it's all done, let's go for the year, but it doesn't quite seem like it's over.
So Joe Tsai, the owner, and Sean Marks, the general manager, using Joe Tsai's sentiment, made it clear the status quo from last season is not acceptable. And it wasn't just about the vaccine mandate. It was about the way Kyrie Irving treated his teammates, about the way Kyrie Irving treated his coaches. So part of this renegotiation wasn't just going to be about a contract extension. It was going to be about a renegotiation of the way the team operated. And by the way, this wasn't a Kyrie Irving issue. The team gave Irving all of this leverage as the way they operated for the last 3 years. So it was both sides that needed to get together. What's happened here is Kyrie has said, I'm opting in, and I'll see you in the fall. That's not the emotion that needs to happen here, and especially the way Woj just articulated it perfectly. It's not see you in the fall. It's let's have a discussion about how the fall is going to go now. And if those discussions don't go well, or if Kyrie Irving comes back in the fall, and it is an attempt to beat the status quo of the way last season operated, which was a huge failure season, let's be honest, then I think it's not over. So I think right now it's up in the air, and I think that's the point.
Already, it's like, is Kyrie still being the guy that we've seen that they want to change? But Tim, I wonder, can you put that genie back in the bottle? Are you going to get a reset that you want if you're the Nets?
Well, that's why this was important, as both Adrian and Brian have articulated, for the Nets to win this opening round in the battle, right? And Kyrie wanted a maximum contract extension, and he didn't get it. And so, his attempt to spin it is, I'm going to be back in the fall, and I'm opting into the deal. But really, that was an admission of him not getting what he wanted, right? And that's really the first step. As Brian said, at many points in the past, Kyrie and Kevin Durant have gotten what they've wanted in Brooklyn. That was sort of what they signed up for, to come and be be in control of what they were going to do with this team. Now, the Nets are trying to reset that dynamic, and the beginning of that was getting Kyrie to do this and to opt into this deal and not commit to a long-term deal with him. The next step will be the work that has to come between now and the start of training camp and getting everybody back on the same page.
Yeah, but again, I come to the same point. How do you get them on the same page if you've already given them the latitude? And Woj, I'll direct this to you. If they've already set up a scenario where Kyrie is doing things one way and now they're saying it's got to be another way, do they feel confident that that will happen, or is there still some tension around that?
I think there is tension around this Nets organization. This was a acrimonious, something of an acrimonious process. Again, like Tim said, Kyrie Irving wanted that long-term extension with the Nets, didn't get it. He tried to find it in sign and trade scenarios, specifically with the Lakers, which was his hope. And even elsewhere, there were no sign and trade opportunities for him to get his long-term deal elsewhere right now. Now, the Nets could still trade Kyrie Irving if they decided to, and it's easier to trade him as an expiring contract. There would be teams who would take Kyrie Irving on with just this year left on his deal. They're not there. And listen, the goal is to have Kyrie Irving on the floor with Kevin Durant. And I think ultimately Kevin Durant is really going to impact how this goes. And I think, he wanted Kyrie Irving back. Certainly, he tried to help in some ways get him that long-term deal. It didn't happen, but he does have him back on the floor. They are both healthy. They have an opportunity to do what they set out to do in Brooklyn, and that's try to win a championship. And I think at some point here, it's going to certainly be incumbent on Kevin Durant, to start, taking the leadership on of this group and this young team. He has done that in the off seasons with his teammates. Guys have gone and spent time and played with him, and certainly he's the very best. But I think that's going to be for the Nets, for Kevin Durant, paramount in trying to, I think, put this group, put a chemistry back together, and see if the Nets can do what they had set out to do again, and that's win the East and play for a championship.
I'm so glad you brought up KD because, Wendy, it makes me think, I know that Kevin Durant is a guy who's about business. He comes in, he does his work. But at the same time, where does he stand in all of this? And what's his role in terms of holding people accountable?
That is the unknown factor in this, at least to the public. Kevin did a podcast earlier this week where he made it clear that he was taking a step back. He was not getting involved. What Woj is saying and what the Nets are going to say is he does need to get involved on this. And where his feeling is going to guide the way the Nets proceed forward. One thing I know from dealing with Kevin over the years, the thing that really upsets him is when people try to assume or to put how they think he should be thinking in words in his mouth. He has repeatedly said, don't do that. So that's fine. We're going to respect that. I think the Nets will respect that too. But then it is incumbent on him to make himself, his thoughts and feelings known. And that's where the Kyrie future is key. Durant has been a constant and strong partner with Kyrie on this Nets team, sometimes defying common logic, why he would support this situation, but he has done it repeatedly. And if he continues to do that, maybe that helps the Nets reset, maybe it continues to cause a problem. That is why we can't put a bow on this yet. But I will say, Ryan, this team is potentially very, very good.
Potentially.
Ben Simmons, who no one seems to talk about, should be healthy for this season. Joe Harris, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, should be healthy for this season. Seth Curry, he had off-season surgery. He should be healthy for this season. That is a terrifying five-man lineup if it all works, but that's a big if.
Yeah, big if, and potentially, and that's what we talk about when we talk about the Nets. Real quick, Tim, do you think that this team can get it all together by the time they get into training camp?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, obviously with everything with Kyrie Irving, it's always maybe is the answer, right? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the fact that they got this step and got to this point and got this opt-in, I think that is an important step. And it's a first step. And I think for where things were a few days ago, I think the Nets will be happy to take a first step and see where things go.
Okay, so they're better now than they were a couple days ago, but they're still not out of the woods. That is the Brooklyn Nets in a nutshell for you folks right now. Okay, guys, thanks so much. I want to turn